What's up, y'all? It's your host, Sensei, and I'm back with another episode. I'd like to say thank y'all for clicking on this video. Make sure you leave a like, a comment, subscribe. Everything helps the algorithm. And recently, I have been told, I have been demanded by all parts of the internet to just say, hey, go ahead and put on Reckoning of Diddy. 50 Cent, you are the type of hater we should all aspire to. And it gets to the point where I really hope, I pray, I don't have a 50 Cent in my corner, because this is insane. I have been warned so many times. Do not watch this whole documentary from start to end in one sitting. And you know what I did? I watched 4 hours of this documentary. And it gets to a point where, at what point do we recognize that bro might have a problem? 50 Cent is doing things that I have never thought was possible. He is pulling up never before seen footage from the 90s. What is going on? How do you have that? Who do you know? And not even to mention all the extra semantics of the filming of this documentary. Episode 1 starts off with, you get Diddy in his hotel, and Diddy's in his hotel, and he is basically telling his PR, he's telling his lawyers, he's like, hey, they're not buying this propaganda we've been shipping. What is going on? I'm still seeing the streets talking about Diddy guilty, Diddy this, Diddy that. We should have been fixed this already. And then it really clicks. I am so proud. I am so elated and ecstatic the way that they were able to film this whole documentary. And even going beyond the aspect of this documentary, seeming to have the conversation of, all right, I just want to let y'all know what this man is truly like. I liked in the first episode, it seems to do this thing where it's constantly reminding you how important propaganda can be, especially when you're not realizing that's what's going on. And when you are engaging in information, you need to figure out, where's this information coming from and why is information important for me to believe this thing? Because in the beginning of the documentary, it starts off with Diddy calling his advisors, he's calling his lawyers, he's calling somebody, his PR team, and they're like, hey, we got to be able to run this story here, we have to get these people talking there, we have to start flooding the internet, we need to start talking on social media, Instagram, TikTok, because if we go on CNN and Fox News and things of that nature, yeah, that's gonna get people, but we truly need to get the jury. Okay, this is interesting because of it kind of highlights how propaganda is important when you are trying to do a thing, and when you're able to change the cohesive point of view of everybody at once, you got to do it. Because of throughout this whole documentary, they're always saying this line of, if you do not make your own narrative, somebody will make it for you. And that's what this documentary is doing. Because of one of the things that I was noticing, especially when the whole Diddy trial was going on in the first place, is the amount of people that are saying free Diddy. Crazy. The amount of people that I was seeing that was going out their way to just like cape and be like, well, they're just trying to tear another black man down, or they're having different conversations around the idea where, well, a lot of it is fake and they know what they were doing. Oh, but like, and the implicit, not beyond the implicitness that's happening, or the and it's interesting because it feels like we're making accomplices out of everybody, especially in the context of this case, because of it feels like the reason why Diddy's been able to Diddy for so long is because of, since it was not caught in the beginning, now as we walk through this whole trial and walk through all these stories, it's like, you're telling me this mogul that came from nothing, he was middle class, this mogul came from nothing, he was just a hustler, he was doing this, and you're telling me he was blowing up people's cars, he was murdering 2 of the biggest artists of all time, he was kidnapping people, he was poisoning others, he was ready to murder whole families off of the slight adjustment of a threat? That's ridiculous. How could he possibly be doing that? And that is the propaganda that is being put at work. And it gets even more interesting. The consistency throughout the whole documentary, where they're like, well, I'm going to give you proof, or at least what we deem is proof, and you guys will have to make the discernment of, well, what is really going on? Because of throughout all the different cases, you recognize how crazy things are always going on in the background, where this person might not get paid. Well, this person might just disappear. Well, this person might pay this other person to go do this other thing. And then when you actually do see him online and in the media and on TV, it's like, no, this is a jovial black man that was able to do everything that he said he was going to do. And that's one of the most interesting parts when it comes to framing this whole conversation, because you recognize it's like, well, there is so many parts of this dude's character where it's like, it's Diddy. He's that guy. He's one of those guys that's like, whatever he wants, he's gonna get. That's one of the most famous videos of him. And from a bird's eye view, it genuinely looks like Diddy is everywhere in hip hop, has shook hands with everybody, pushes everybody. He's shaping the way that the media is being feud of hip hop, especially in the context of hip hop and rap literally just starting out, or at least gangster rap just starting out, and making it cool to the whole masses. And the ability to change the way that people are being able to view this type of stuff and making it seem actually profitable is a thing that you can't take too lightly. And then jumping from clothes to liquor to this and that, and then he gets to the point where he's everywhere. And then you turn, 5 years go by, one of the biggest A&R people in the world. Another 5 years go by, one of the biggest rap conglomerates. So then it just builds and builds and builds. And that's where I want to start off before we actually enter Sean Combs' The Reckoning, episode 1, Pain versus Love. When this documentary starts, you get Diddy. He's in his hotel and he's having a conversation with his lawyers or PR team, somebody in the media, and they're like, hey, we need to change the story, like I was saying earlier. And then you start to notice a couple things. Just like, well, who's recording this? Why is this being filmed? And it's crazy because throughout this whole documentary, you're getting this dude that is filming everything. And it turns out Diddy was going to be like, okay, we're going to beat this case in 2024. We're going to beat it. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to drop my own documentary. I'm going to talk about how we won, how after everyone was doubting me, we were still able to get this done and over with. And I still came up on top. But there were some money problems. Diddy was not able to pay the cameraman. So 50 was like, well, I see something beautiful. Let me slide in here. I'm gonna pay this guy. I'm gonna pay that guy. We're gonna make it all set up. There's some alleged to see if this is real or not. There's some conversation around if this is not so much legal, but if this is in bad faith. But hey, this is all alleged. This is all for the purpose of making this this is all on the person making this documentary. We're just getting information. Is it real? Is it not? That's not the point of this. That is not the point. The main idea is going around is propaganda, shaping the way that the public is able to see this person. That's the whole point of it. So we start breaking down who this Diddy character is, and it seems to boil down to a conversations of 20 years of pure narcissism. And kind of like what I was saying earlier, where narcissism is one of those things that can help you, especially if you have the ambition to go along with it. You tend to walk through the world with a different aura, a different energy to you when you know that everything that you want to do in this life you could do as long as you want it. That's a very powerful thing, and it's getting to the point where it made him work harder than everybody else. There's a story that Andre Harrell, I think his name, the founder of Uptown Records, the place that he was interning at before, where he asked Diddy, he was like, okay, I need you to go to this one spot and get this thing written out and bring it back to me. And when it literally took 2 minutes, he literally ran. He ran from down the block, did all that, ran back, immediately got the work done. And that's just the way that he was moving. And it got to the point where if you're willing to work hard, especially in that time, we will move you up. We just got to. We are willing to reward this type of hard work, especially when you're in a place where the CEO sees something in you. So as he's interning, you can notice that there is this swagger, braggadocious. There's this energy that was always in him, and it got to the point where it kind of was undeniable when it came to him trying to get to the place where he was trying to go. Him and Andre Miller kind of started like really bonding for a couple of reasons. One, it kind of seemed as if Andre was giving this fatherly figure that Diddy just never had because of his own father. He was a dope mover. He was selling drugs. He was doing the whole thing. He was one of the bigger guys in the community where he was always able to have money. He was always having motion, and everybody knew it. He ends up dying, and that leaves him without a father. And we all know in psychology and sociology, when a person does not have a father, the way that life is viewed tends to change pretty dramatically and pretty drastically very quickly. And in the case of him, where it was just him and his mother this whole time, Janice. It was him and Janice. And their relationship was pretty like interesting because Janice did a lot, like all single mothers do when it comes to trying to provide for your kid. And I think he's his only child. When you're trying to provide for your kids, you got to do what you got to do to make things work. And it got to the point where Diddy started to move into that role. That's there's this saying, especially in the black community, where when there isn't a father at home, they tend to make the son start fulfilling those roles for the mother, in a sense, where he would constantly dress up as his father. They would dress him up and actively like treat him different. And it was sent to the point where it seems to be changing the way that there's a viewage of those two, and the relationship started to not so much get strained, but it would always be different. It would never be like a quote unquote regular type of relationship. And it's interesting because it's like in the documentary, they start talking about this black exploitation era where it came to the partying and the dressing up in suits and the dancers. It's just a very adult place for Diddy to be growing up with. And it was interesting the way that they set it up in the documentary, because it seemed like hey, we are alluding to one of the reasons why, as he gets older, the freak-offs and things of that nature starts bubbling up. It starts changing the way that he's able to view certain types of relationships. And as time goes on, he starts really feeling himself. He starts getting connected with Andre. Andre keeps giving him some more leash and having him keep doing more work. And it got to the point where he was starting to have motion. There was an all-star basketball game at this gym, right? And when I tell you the tickets were selling like hotcakes, everybody and their mother had to be there. Just by force. They were going to get there if they like it or not. It was one of those things where it's like, hey, anybody that is anybody will be there, especially if you're of the age ranges of like 15 to like 25. That was the it spot to go to. And there was just too many people, and people got hurt. People ended up just dying, laid out on the ground. It was pretty horrific. As you're watching, you're like, this person is dead. Like these people are dead, right? And as time goes on, from that moment on, Diddy gets on the news. They're talking about it. He's not so much getting blamed for it, but they're trying to find somebody to blame for this incident and be held accountable. But nobody really gets held accountable for this whole altercation. And that kind of starts a pattern, as you can see throughout this whole documentary, where it's like something would happen and Diddy would get even bigger. Another thing would happen, and then it gets to the point where he is untouchable. And I really like the way that they're setting that up all the way through this whole documentary. And even as things goes on, even as it was going on, he started to get a lot more traction. It was weird. Out of nowhere, he gets Jodeci put right on his lap. He is the A&R. And I'm not one of the folks that think Diddy is he was objectively useless, because he definitely did have an eye for setting people up to look and tell a story when they were on camera, because that was the whole point. He was trying to figure out the way you dress, the way that you would move, the type of music you would do, the type of vibe that you're trying to give the audience to be able to be as consumable as possible. And then it'll get to the point where he started getting really big names. He gets Jodeci. So when he gets to Jodeci, he kind of gets this whispering in his ear after they blow up, right? And I think it was Andre. Andre was like, repeatedly, he would tell him this. He was like, hey, make sure you are more important than the artist. And that kind of permeates through the way that he's been moving throughout the next 20 years, because of, he tends to recognize, like, you know what, hey, I make the artist don't make me. I'm the one that's putting these people in the right clothes. I'm the one that's having them have the style that is profitable. I'm the one that's getting these people paid. And that tends to build a separate, domineering, even narcissistical type of thinking that comes with trying to be in this places that he is. After he gets Jodeci, it's one of those things where when you do something right and it works, you will get another opportunity. Opportunity don't come frequently, but when you are winning, all the opportunity tends to funnel in a singular place. And he gets Mary J. Blige. What are we doing? And when you are able to get hit after hit, superstar after superstar, it gets to the point where you get a little big for your britches. He gets fired. He goes to his manager, Andre, and said, hey, I need to build something. I know what I'm doing. I'm one of them ones. And Andre's like, you know what? Fine. Get out of here. And you know what? You could keep Biggie too. And that right there is where it gets interesting, because of, in that era, there was never a Biggie. Biggie was one of those guys where it's like, once 1 in a million doesn't even cut it with how big bro could be. From the aesthetics of trying to be a rapper, to the voice, to the vibe, to the stature, because Biggie was a big kid. He was a big dude. And it was to the point where his talents was unmatched. Like, he was able to hit every different flow that there was. He had this specific vibe that he was given, where it's like, you need to go to him if you want that type of thing. You cannot recreate this. So when Diddy's able to keep Biggie, he goes to Clive Davis, and that's where a lot of the money is. And he's like, hey, we have a guy here. But here's the interesting thing, right? So early in rap, I wouldn't want to call it the lyrical spiritual area, but a lot of the music, if you were to play today, it might flop. That's the best way I could put it. And one of the main problems was like, well, Biggie was just cuss. He was just cussing and the motorist of mouth. And it got to the point where they were like thinking, like, who is gonna buy this? How are they gonna buy this? But it was one of those things where the times were changing and the eras were moving. And so they started backing him. And then alongside that, the business of Bad Boys, they had to divide it around, figure out where all the money is going. So 75% was going to Janice, not Diddy. Keep that in mind. And the other 25% was going to go to one of his close guys, Kirk Burroughs, was going to get 25%. And then after that moment, there was a lot of bread that starts moving around, but he wasn't at that spot in totality yet, but he was still moving on. And you're starting to see some of the unhinged personality traits, right? One of the main things was they kept saying this, where it's like, did he constantly try to give this vibe of gangstering? Like, he really wanted to be a gangster. And it was interesting because I feel like it was raining back to earlier in the documentary where they're talking about, like, yeah, his dad was a gangster and he always wanted to live up. He was always trying to walk in those footsteps and get to the place where it's like, yeah, no, y'all will fear me. Y'all will fear me in the business room and you will fear me in the goddamn streets. And it was weird because it's like, people wouldn't really like take him like seriously for real. which is interesting because of, as the years go by, he would get more and more willing to get out of hand, right? And this is where the story comes out, where he was having an argument with this one dude He walks up. I think it was one of his artists. He walks to him, slaps him in the face, and he's like, "Oh, okay, interesting." Tell him to get in the car. They get in the car and drive around the corner because they're like, "Hey, I'm not gonna do you crazy in front of everybody as just some respect to you, but I will do you crazy." They drive around the corner, and then he hits him with the "Listen to this project." It's the Biggie one. And as I'm sitting back and I'm watching, I'm thinking to myself, so it feels like the consistent need to physically assert yourself is consistent throughout this whole documentary, because of you don't slap somebody and then you don't slap somebody in front of other people if you're not trying to send a message to them. And this sending a message thing is a pretty is pretty jarring when you actually look at it in the context of everybody else, because you start to notice is like, okay, if somebody feels that they can hit you, I think they truly believe they could do anything to you, and you will just sit there and smile and laugh and enjoy. You'll take it and you'll love it, because it's like, hey, that's just the relationship that y'all have. And one of the things that I find very intriguing is when it does come to abuse, right? If you start early and frequently, you will get somebody that will just coincide and acquiesce to anything that you want, especially if you start off with something so small and inconvenient, where it's like, for example, talking over them, or when you guys are having a conversation, they put their hand on your shoulder and just give you a quick squeeze, something little like that. To be domineering is a way to get people to psychologically bend to you. One of the things that happens next in the documentary, especially in the first episode, then they start mentioning a guy, a very important guy to the history of rap. All eyes on me. One of the greatest rappers ever. One of the GOAT cases. Tupac Shakur starts coming on the record. People start noticing, they start witnessing something real interesting with this guy. He has the smoothness, the charisma, the attractiveness, the style, the swag, the ability to rap that was not regular. Very, you turn your head when a guy like Tupac walks around. You feel the energy immediately. The way that he's able to walk you through a comparison, or the way that he's able to make you believe, or at least feel like you relate to the crazy thing that he's talking about and feeling, is one of the things that made Tupac so not just enjoyable, but command respect the way that he did. This is one of his songs, right? And they were struggling to study everything. They had to do it. And you know what they did? They're like, okay, we know they broke it down like a science and said, Biggie, we got something for you. And that's when we get... And then they do everything they can to reproduce this energy that's come from the West. And that's when you get Big Papa from Biggie. And that's when Biggie ends up taking a whole nother step forward, because it's like, hey, if you're able to add that type of charisma, when it comes to rap and R&B, charisma might be the most important thing that you can do, because that's how you really get folks to be like ingratiated into what you do and what you're able to feel. Because they need, for an artist to be a really good artist, every man must want to be you, and every woman must want to be with you. That energy needs to go through the mic. They gotta really hear it. They really want everything that you are giving. So Biggie and Tupac finally meet. They go west, they hang out for a bit, and you tend to notice there's a change in vibe, and you tend to recognize they liked each other. No matter what, all the propaganda and all the videos and all the beef and things of that nature, there seemed to be an underlying friendship that Tupac and Biggie seemed to share. And that was probably one of the more unique things that I recognized throughout the whole documentary, was because it's like, well, you would hear about all the beef and you hear about all the negativity and things of that nature, but it was like, Biggie was like, yeah, no, that's my bro. And Tupac was like, no, that's my homie. We are talented. We are two very talented individuals. And that's what's most important. And it seemed like Diddy didn't really like that much, really. Sean Combs' The Reckoning, Episode 2. What goes down must come up. There's a robbery storyline that happened the first time that Tupac gets really mentioned. He gets shot while, I think, visiting or trying to record something with Diddy or something of that nature. A recording studio that the only people that knew of Tupac pulling up was Diddy and his people. There ends up being a shootout, and that kind of rubs Tupac the wrong way because it's like, oh, did you just... Okay. I see you. Don't even worry about it. Bad Boy continues to be on the rise. They're dropping an album of the year. This song, Flavor in Your Ear, is going, and it's going like platinum. Everyone is listening. There's a lot of good vibes going on, right? And then not even to mention, as Bad Boy was coming up, everybody started to get on board because they recognized, okay, if I want to be big, I have to go to Bad Boy. That's the only way I'm ever going to become a quote unquote rapper, because they were the only people that were like doing it for real. And that's when you start to notice there's a lot of meat munching that was going throughout everybody. And that's another thing that puts into perspective throughout this whole documentary. Being that Diddy was one of the first gateways, especially in the rap industry, not only was there nowhere else to go, it turned out where if you weren't willing to kiss the ring and bow down, there was no place for you in this empire, and you just had to accept that was the rules of the engagement. Because it's like, what, you're gonna try and, I don't know, buck back? Yeah, Diddy's not gonna be your god after he's out here putting everybody on money and game and motion. You will just get replaced. There starts being a lot of dissension amongst the court, right? There starts to be a lot of dissension that starts to happen. And there's a lot of loose ends that also start to happen too. Because as Bad Boys was on the rise, there was still money that needed to be recouped. So Diddy was like, all right, well, I need to make more money. I need to make more plays. Kirk, go ahead and give me my 25% back. Sign up for 2025. And the story was, Sean tells Kirk to pull up. He goes into the office, and Diddy is standing on top of him with a bat telling him to sign off your percentage if you know what's good for you. Now, here's why that's like not only crazy, but noticeably important in the story of trying to frame everything that's going on. Because it's like, one, the consistent resort to violence, because it's like, not only are you going to threaten this person's life with a bat, you're going to threaten your closest homie with a bat. And 3, you're going to do what? Beat him senseless? Murder him over this 25%? Not even to mention that the 25% was his. He was the one that was doing the books. He was the one that was playing everyone. He was the person that was reaching out to all these different people to make sure this company moved the way it needed to. And then it's like, oh yeah, no, we will need that 25%. Even as the time would go on, as time would pass, people would consistently ask, bro, why would you give up that money? And why would you sign it away so like early too? And he's like, well, I just wanted to be a part of the company. Do you know when you build something, do you know when something is your baby and you looking around, you're trying to like make this thing work? You are willing to stay in the abusive scenario that you are in to be able to consistently put towards a good effort to make this idea a thing. Oh, and something that I noticed, and not even to mention, so we could talk about how he was doing those type of people bad. There needs to be an emphasis on the idea of doing everybody around you bad for the extent to make a little bit of money, or in this case, a lot of money. So everybody on his organization was broke. That was one of the things that people would like consistently talk about. It's like, if you were a rapper under Bad Boy, you were broke. Everybody knew it. Everybody knew the gig. You were not going to be able to make no money out of your contract because everybody had a bad 360 contract. For example, Craig Mack, right? He was trying to get some bread. He was trying to get some of his bread, right? And Kirk was trying to explain it like this. One of the reasons why it's so difficult for any of the artists to actually get their money is they would put all the money in shell company. They had you playing the shell game where you literally do your best trying to track this money. But after the 8th company that you're looking through to try and figure out where your money is going, you're just going to keep running around looking for your tail, and everybody else will just be moving forward until you are just completely forgotten, especially if you're not willing to play the game. Alongside that, and alongside the money being hidden, they were paying Diddy. Diddy was getting so much bread from this. It was one of those things where it's like, well, I was in the music video, so I'm going to pay me for the music video. Oh, for your song? Well, here's a quick ad lib. Here's 3 sentences into your song, and you know what? This was $100,000. I was just working. I was dancing. I was in the music. I was popping and locking it. And the amount of times they're showing Diddy dancing, it was like, okay, you know when someone believes that they're dancing like Chris Brown, but actually they're just like throwing their hip out every few movements? Yeah, that's kind of like the vibe that was coming from. And I love the way that everybody was emphasizing this idea of, bro, he can't rap. He just can't rap. Everybody would say it. And it felt like everyone was starting to get annoyed of like these little antics also, where it's like, all right, here this A&R dude goes. Because keep in mind, he wasn't producing nothing. He wasn't writing no music. He wasn't doing the videography. He was doing none of that. And he was like, yeah, I will get all this money and I'll be a really big part of it because I'm the guy. I don't care that you're the artist. I'm the most important person in the room. Are we square? Are we good? And then as time would go on, Death Row Records makes an appearance. Randomly, they pop up. And when I tell you, it seemed as if they were the exact antithesis to everything Bad Boy was doing. So think of it like this. They would constantly, their artists were getting paid. They didn't have the A&R guy just randomly dancing in the back. They weren't having to like bow down and bend the knee constantly to the A&R guy to the owner of the record label, because of that wasn't their role. And one of the things you start to notice, especially another form of abuse, is if I can make everybody around me need me, and if I can make everyone around me so uncontrollably broke, what are you gonna do? Where are you gonna go? You're just gonna sniff me? You're not gonna listen to me when I tell you to jump and touch your toes and turn around and twerk in a circle? You're not gonna do exactly what I told you? Don't worry about it. You'll be replaced. And guess what? And now you're a grown artist asking your papa for money. What are you gonna do? You're asking me for money. You're looking towards me for some bread. You untalented. And then that's how the manipulation starts to build upon itself. And here's some of the crazy things, right? As these stories go on, you start to recognize there is too many gun stories. This SOB is crazy. Okay, so here's this one story, right? So they're at this club, right? It's Suge, Diddy, this guy named Jake, I think. This guy named Jake, right? They're in the club. Shootout breaks loose. Diddy tells Suge, oh, and guess what? I'm going to kill your whole family. I'm going to murk all y'all. And he goes and ends up shooting Jake. Like, he looks Suge in the eyes and he starts just firing off on this random dude named Jake. Shoots him, I think, like 9-10 times. And as everything is blowing up, this person, as the stories go on, they continuously get more and more crazy. And you're starting to wonder, why is nobody like speaking up? And it's one of those things where it's like, it's too late. Too much time has passed. There's too much, not so much even on the terms of like allegations, but everything feels like it has been building to the point where there's no return. Because it's like, what? You're gonna out crazy the guy that I was talking about? He was willing to end everything and everybody? Okay. So after that shootout, I don't think anybody really gets charged. Everybody moves on. No one gets booked. It's crazy. Next happens. Pac ends up going to Pop goes to jail. He has some legal troubles. I think assault, if I remember correctly. Suge goes and visits him in prison, and they chop it up. They start to like each other, and then they recognize that they both have a common enemy because of not only was Pac shot at, he has this feeling that Diddy has something to do with it. Everybody has a feeling that Diddy has something to do with it, but hey, nothing's been proven. We move on. And Suge's like, hey, you should come join Death Row. With our reach and your magic and your ability to be like the perfect rapper, we will do so much. So they say, let's pair up. And when I tell you, Pac starts going crazy. He starts dropping iconic. He goes and drops All Eyes on Me. He drops the fuck your bitch and the bitch you claim. And that's crazy. That's crazy. Because now he starts alluding to the fact that he was clapping on Biggie's I think mother of her child, I think, something crazy like that. But probably one of the first like real crazy diss tracks, one of the most all-time ones. People looking around like this Drake and Kendrick was crazy. No. This one is like the rap beef ever. So as it starts going crazy, Biggie doesn't really want to engage. He doesn't really want to like play into this whole the song and dance of it all. So Diddy's like, so you're just gonna like let him really talk about your baby moms? That's the yo girl? Really? That's how you gonna do it? Couldn't be me. And here's the crazy part. Biggie still wasn't trying to like bite on it. He was not trying to escalate it because he knows people could actually get hurt from this. Because this is back in the time when folks would actually this is back in the time when people were ready to throw their life and just die. They're ready to just throw their life away on camera. Let's kill each other. That was the era of rap that they were currently in, where it's like, no, this is a dangerous time to be alive. So a little bit of time passes, right? And I think Pac gets shot again, and Biggie goes and drops the song "Who Shot You," and that's when it's just like, all right, all gloves are off. Things are crazy. Folks are just dancing on each other, laughing, doing all this extra stuff, right? I was looking back at some of those music videos. They had this guy that was parodying. They had this one guy that was parodying Biggie, and he was literally just like in the music video. I think they kill him in the music video, but it's crazy. Everyone's wilding out. So there's this Tyson fight. And Tupac, after he's excited, he's happy, he's joyous, everything is just like ruckarty. I'm happy, right? He goes and sees this guy that stiffs him. Orlando Anderson. He recognizes him, he peels off. Boom. Shoom. Runs up after him. They get into a quick fight. It's a big scuffle. Hands thrown, feet, whoopings, everybody going crazy. After the fight breaks loose, Pac runs off and he gets shot in the car. And this is the same night. So after the fight, Pac runs off. He gets in the car. They shoot up the car. And during this time, he was supposed to go and visit Craig Mack on a stage. He was supposed to perform with Craig Mack at this stage because Craig Mack has been like, I'm over it with Diddy. He has been doing far too much this whole time. I want to actually make some real money. I am broke. I need somewhere to go. And as that night goes on, he thinks that Tupac just stiffs him. He just doesn't show up. And after that, Diddy goes and calls him. He's like, so after Tupac runs off, he gets shot. And it's crazy. Shot through the car. And that's a crazy night because if he was supposed to go meet Craig Mack on the stage, he's supposed to be performing with him. And he just doesn't show up. So he's like, well, what's going on? And he finds out that he dies. And after that moment, he's like, oh, okay, so I guess I can't go to Death Row Records, because he was trying to make that switch because he's getting pretty tired of Diddy, because it's one of those things where it's like, hey, I've been rapping for this long. I've been giving you all these albums. I've been giving you all this work, and I'm still broke. I'm still asking you for money. This is ridiculous. So some time passes, right? There's a lot of conjunctions. They're trying to figure out what's happening. The police are trying to make a good case against what's going on. So folks starts following the trail. Anytime there's a lot of congestion, you gotta follow the money. And one of the things that does is times to lead to what's most important. So the money leads to this guy named Keith. Keith is a gang leader. And not only is he a gang leader, his nephew is Orlando. The guy that got in a fight with Pac? That's interesting. Diddy ends up paying this guy, let's call him Zip. And Zip ends up paying Keith. And Keith goes, and allegedly the idea is he goes and gets rid of Pac. And Suge is not talking. So guess what happens? Everything falls to the wayside. You can't get a real heading on what happened, and everything just falls apart. Diddy goes and drops Muscle Game, and it literally sounds like, well, after Diddy drops Muscle Game, it sounds as if this is a declaration of what I have done. This is, I can do no wrong. If you try me, I will get you. I will move this way. I'll move that way. You think you are safe? Good luck. And that's crazy. So when all this is happening, Big starts getting a little paranoid, and he goes on a trip. He does some performances, but you might wonder, why would he do that, right? Diddy goes and he tells him, he's like, hey, this would be a good idea. You should reach out your arm. He was one of your friends. Me and you, we should just do the right thing and just help them out. That's just how things goes. That's how we do be professional. He goes out there, and the same night, things go horribly wrong. He ends up getting shot. After he goes on this tour, he ends up getting murdered. No one knows who shot him. Everybody is confused. There's some hints that it felt like somebody might have pushed who to go where, this specific place, a specific time, paid these specific people to do these specific things, but there's no smoking gun, as they say. Since no one is talking, no one knows what's what, and we can't make an arrest without knowing what is going on or having definitive proof that's able to push you down this specific narrative. And that's one of the things that's interesting while you are watching this. It shows you a light that no one has been talking about. Well, let me say it again. People have been talking about it, but it hasn't been looked at as a serious conjunction. They haven't been recognized as like a true possibility, because of even today, folks are asking about who shot Biggie, who shot Pac, how did this all go down? And yet nobody still has information. After Biggie dies, right? National news, it's big, and out of the kindness of Diddy's heart, he says, you know what? I think that we should have the biggest funeral to celebrate him. The world must know the type of love that we got. Biggie gotta be able to look down at us and smile that we've done so much good work. And guess what happens? After spending all that money, after making a spectacle of his death, guess who pays for it? Biggie's estate. And you know where it gets crazy? So after Biggie dies, Diddy goes and tells Kirk, he's like, hey, I need you to rewrite that contract that he already signed for his new album, and, you know, add some things here, make it easier for us to get some money there, and make it overall more palatable for our company. And Kirk looking around like, hey, yo, what's going on? That sounds crazy. After saying this sounds crazy, he looks around and says, oh, so you're not about the group? You're like, oh, okay. You're not with us? Don't worry about it. You are fired. And that's where he is, just empty-handed, gone. Forgotten until time. Yeah. And one of the most interesting parts about it, so Biggie was also going to be on the cover of the Rolling Stone, and that was going to push him into stardom. He was going to be pushed into the mass media. Everybody was going to know who this man Biggie was. But after the death, do you know who's on that cover? Diddy. Diddy was on that cover. And after that moment, there was no turning back. He just goes and skyrockets through his fame and popularity and the money. I like the way that he's setting up these episodes, because the first one seems to be a backdrop into the person and the characteristics of this man named Diddy, right? Everything that he's done, all the little sly stuff that just somehow, some way just disappears, all the people that has been forgotten to time, but it's just Diddy that prevails. And then you move on to the second episode where you recognize how big of controversies that he's truly been a part of, and people looking around and they're like, okay, not only is he willing to throw people under the bus, but he would rather prefer throwing people under the bus. And that seems like the main idea that he is pushing throughout this whole second episode. Sean Combs' Reckoning, episode 3, official girl. We start throwing money. We start moving around with bread. So it starts off with him calling one of his homegirls, I think Misa. Oh, I've totally forgot. I've totally been forgetting. One of the things you really have to notice throughout this whole documentary: women, women, women. If it's your girl, it's my girl now. Just being the ability to control and force people into a specific box that you want them to be living in is a very important necessity when it comes to trying to build what he is doing, and the separate ways that abuse can be forgotten and be set up in a way that makes everything looks far more palatable to you, especially as a man. As you enter episode 3, it seems as if the purpose of the episode was to highlight all the unravelings that comes from a play like this, and the fact that people will find out that you are doing all these crazy things, and it will be a topic of discussion when you are being highlighted of the type of person that you were before and you continue to be. So you get introduced to this character, Lil Rodney. Lil Rod is what he was going by through this whole Lil Rod Jones, what he was going by. And he was put on to make, or at least to help produce, the Love album. The Sean Combs R&B rap Love Mistress album that's able to feel like you are doing the do with the great Sean Diddy Combs. That's the vibe, right? And it's one of those projects where you have to, get off the grid. You have to go find a secluded island and just like hang out for a bit and be able to really channel all your creative juices to be able to make a masterpiece. That's what you got to do when you're trying to be great. Lil Rod looks to his left and he sees this guy named G walk by. He sees Diddy walk by. He sees his son walk by. They all go to the bathroom. You hear a boom, like a click, right? And Lil Rod could look to himself like, whoa, what the fuck was that? What's going on? He goes to the bathroom. Blood everywhere. He sees a guy peel off on the ground, bleeding everywhere. He's like, okay, we gotta call the cops. I'm gonna get some towels. We gotta make this work. He will live, type of thing, right? They call 911. Nobody is really like moving with the urgency that you really should be. Everyone's like, well, I guess we gotta call 911. Sure. 911 gets called, and the conversation goes with the cops where it's like, well, where did this happen? Diddy's telling everybody, hey, if you got some sense, just go ahead and tell them that shooting happened outside these house. He wasn't in here. You know what? You don't know him either. And everyone just acquiesces. Everyone just like goes with the flow with it. And bro just disappears. Not to heard of again. Crazy. Lil Rod looks around like, oh, so this is how we moving? You know what? I'm just here to get my work done, and I'm just hoping and praying this changes my life. That's all he's trying to do. That's all he's trying to get out of this. Whatever happens is what happened, but that ain't got nothing to do with this guy, right? He recognizes, okay, well, if I want to make it, I will have to make it. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how much work I have to put in, but I will make this. This will be my big break. It goes for around like 2 years that he's working on this project with them, and he misses a lot. He is truly putting his heart and soul into making this album work. So not only are we getting to the point where, all right, let's start. And I feel like this is where you really start to getting the unhinged, unraveling, motherfucker is old type of vibes, right? Because of while you are watching, right, you see this unhinged vibe that's coming off of Diddy, where he's consistently comparing himself to Jesus, to God, speaking in not speaking in tongues, but speaking in ways where it's like everything that I'm doing, it already has been written in stone thousands of years ago. So the fact that you guys are not doing what exactly I want of y'all, this is unholy. This is not good. I'm not letting this slide, and that's very worrisome, especially now that you have all the money in the world to be able to do what you need in this life, right? We're able to change not just perspective of other people, where other people are willing to give you the benefit of the, not only the benefit of the doubt, but they're willing to change what they already agreed upon to be able to acquiesce to a guy like you. And that gets very, very people get very, very, not so much pushed to the wayside when someone that is power hungry walks in, but people tend to bow once you get to the point where the money reflects the confidence and bravado that you are. Throughout this, for the past like 2 episodes, right, there has been so many allures and notices to the grooming that is naturally happening to a lot of these people, because of not only are these like youngins like Lil Rod, but these are people that need this gig, right? These are people that are sacrificing everything and everybody to be a part of this gig. And I want to like stick on Lil Rod for like a little bit longer, because of this was a 2-year process, right? And he was seeing so many crazy things, such, not just life-changing is not the right word that I'm looking for, but the perspective that you have of this world tends to shift when you're experiencing the things that he has, right? And you could see him quivering and shaking when he is telling his story, because of, there's this point where he brings up where he would wake up and it was going crazy. He would wake up and sometimes there would be women around that he doesn't remember. He would wake up and sometimes Diddy would be sleeping right next to him and he wouldn't remember what happened. And then he went and said that he woke up and his backside was sore, and you could see he's trying his hardest to stay as straight-faced, as like strong, as what's the word I'm looking for, as manly as possible, while he's alluding to the fact that he has been sexually assaulted. And you can see the weakness in his eyes, how he's like literally about to cry because he feels like he let this person do this to him, and that's just the life that he has to live with that now. And after all of that, after those 2 years, right, of working on this project, the rollout starts going on. He doesn't get paid. He starts seeing that other people are starting to get paid. He hasn't gotten paid. He starts looking around, and this is now on Billboard. He still hasn't gotten paid, and he's looking around like, okay, when are you going to pay me, and why have I not been paid? And it starts to become this contentious thing between him and Diddy, where he's like, hey, you owe me this money. And guess how much money they owed him? 29 bands, $29,000 for 2 years of work on something not only creative, but this is 24-hour work that he's doing. And not only has he been drugged out of his mind, but partying this whole time with people that he doesn't know, especially when he's been consistently adamant on the aspect of trying to get back to work. He's been trying to make a name for himself this whole time, and nothing of fruit comes from it. And he still doesn't even got the $29,000 till this day. So not only does he feel used and abused, but he feels like he's taken for the run around. And guess what? Nobody has been hearing this story. Nobody knew of this until this documentary comes out. So it really lets you think, what else is being missed upon? Who else has been set astray and been used and abused and discarded through the times of history of this man that has not been brought to the forefront? And I feel like I jumped off of this Cassie part a little early, right? Throughout the whole trial, right? Through the whole trial, there was this emphasis of trying to shape the way that the media was looking at this, because even from episode 1, they were highlighting, they're like, hey, we need to be putting money towards where the people are. And that is social media, TikTok, Instagram. That's where they are, right? So during the trial, the PR team would actively reach out to these social media, quote unquote, like influencers, to be able to run through the script of the things that they were seeing inside of the courthouse, right? And they had a specific written out guideline of the things that they should emphasize, things they should leave out, things that they should really bring to the forefront, because of not only, so here's one of the things that's like TikTok is so good at, it's able to make a wildfire very quickly, right? Especially when it's a big name person coming on the stage, right? So not only are you getting the clips from the news organizations and the few select people that were actually inside the courtroom, now you're getting people making think pieces. Now you're having people that are making video essays, and now you're having idiots get online and just yap, 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 yap. And it gets to the point where everything is being flooded. And it kind of reminds me of, what's it called? Of this Boondocks episode when R. Kelly was in jail, right? And there's having people say free R. Kelly. People just outside the courthouse yelling about, oh, free Diddy, he didn't even do nothing wrong. It's not illegal to be a freakazoid. It is. What are we doing? What are we talking about? And as this conversation keeps going, you recognize that everyone is not having the same conversation, right? The way that the nation was viewing someone like Cassie was really interesting to me because of they were going through the perspective of, well, these are two grown adults. You know what was going on. You should have known, and on and on. Not even to mention the fact that like freshly 19 when all this started. Not even to mention the fact that motherfuckers was like rich beyond like richness, right? And not to mention the amount of drugs, not to mention the physical abuse, all these different aspects that need to be put into that need to be brought to the light and at least like at least acknowledged in the first place, just being thrown away. And I find it so not only invasive but disingenuous the way that the trial was going on, where a lot of the jury members would admit to knowing who Diddy was. They would say that they watched Making the Band. They would say that they had a picture with Diddy. They said this and that and all these extra parts of it that it's like, well, how is this a fair trial to begin with? So not only was Diddy filming everything, right? There was a lot of assaults that got rubbed under the table into a consistency where it feels like everybody has a different story. There's so many women from the let's make a band era to the times when he was and kind of like Lil Rod. There was so many men that were not just assaulted, but like had their life morphed around Diddy, where they would physically be assaulted, mentally, spiritually, and just like sexually, like consistently being assaulted, like Lil Rod. And then moving on to like the women, like Aubrey O'Day. So her story was a hard listen. So she was one of the former band leaders, one of like the former main like it girls, right? And she was getting a lot of explicit messagings from Diddy, directly from Diddy, talking about, oh, we gotta get the clapping and start doing this and physical that. And she was like, hey, I'm here for the music. I don't know if that's like my thing. I don't really. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, try and tell somebody. I dare you. Try and move on from me. Try it. So some time goes by. She starts to like move away, and somebody sends her a letter or an email, something of that nature, and they're telling her like, hey, I watched you get assaulted. I watched you, and I know 100% Diddy was behind you, and one of his bodyguards were in front of you. And I know that this was happening, so I'm just going to let you know about this. That's all I'm going to do. And it was one of those things where it's like, wow, she has no recollection. And now there's this pattern of people just not having recollections of the craziness that's happening in their own life in regards to this man Diddy. That's fucking crazy. That's insane. And now it puts the onus on her where it's like, well, are you going to come out with this? Well, if you come out and say that this never actually happened to you, well, guess what's going to happen? It's going to throw away all the hundreds of people that have been throwing in their own lawsuits against this man. So it's like, hey, do you want this to be your truth? Do you want to go forward with this? Let me know. And next, there's this trail of just hitting cameras everywhere. There's literally like 5 stories throughout this whole documentary where they're like, yeah, no, there's a hidden camera there. There's a video of you doing something over here. And that's kind of where these like freak offs, where the story of the freak off starts getting like really crazy, because of allegedly there's cameras that was capturing everything. And then it kind of puts you in danger of like, well, what did he see? What was I doing? And one of his band members, Dawn, it was part of their like 3-man group. It was Dawn, her homegirl, and Diddy. And Dawn was like, yeah, no, Diddy has been sexually assaulting me for the past like 10, 12 years or whatever it is. And her co-mate was like, whoa, I didn't even know what's going on, because she was also having like difficulties in her home life where she had to like figure out a lot that was going on. So now you have all these different women that were just coming out the woodworks being like, hey, you did something to me. You have been abusing all these different people through all these different contexts of relationships where they all kept silence until this moment. And now everybody is coming out. And even on the tip of tap, and even on the tail end of Cassie's stuff, it was Cassie and this one lady. There's Cassie and Capricorn. This story between these two. So Capricorn was Diddy's like assistant. Capri was one of like the main assistants, where her whole thing was she was making everything run, making the whole camp run, making all making sure the planes get caught, making sure the clothes get sent, making sure everything is like moving, especially internationally. And there's a story where Cassie was like, okay, can Kid Cudi come out with us to go hiking? What we thinking? Is this gonna work? And Capri's like, now this is proof. So sure, whatever. Let him come through. And that is the start of how it gets crazy. So Diddy comes through the door, knocks, boom, 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 kicks open the door. He's like, hey, where is Cassie? And why didn't you tell me? And like starts like really braiding her all these different questions. And she's like, well, what is going on? I don't know what's happening. And he's like, oh, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And you're going to take me to her. So in a sense, kidnaps her to go and find Cassie. So as they're driving through the road, he's talking about, oh, I'm going to kill him once we get there. So he's driving to Kid Cudi's house to kill him over Cassie. And keep in mind, this is the same Diddy that blew up their car. Yes, that story. Yes. More time passes. As they're driving by, they get there and they're calling Cassie like, hey, come out, da-da-da-da. And then Cassie's like, oh no, y'all should leave, da-da-da-da. And then Diddy hits him with the, well, I have Capri with me, and guess what? We are not leaving, and she is not leaving until you come out. So she goes and rushes out because she knows how like crazy stuff can get, allegedly. And again, allegedly, he goes and starts like beating her everywhere but her face. And it kind of calls back to the blaxploitation times when pimps would make sure to hit everything but their face, because that's where the money was at. And it was interesting because that was a story that was being told inside court, and everybody was like, what? This ain't none. Ain't nothing happened. You was capping. This has to be a lie. This is so egregious for this to not be a lie. And it's one of those things where the whole jury seems to be far too starstruck for any of this to even work, any of this proof to be like being told upon, because it's like, okay, how is this even possible? This man that's been a pillar in the community for all this long, and free Diddy this and free Diddy that, why would he go and risk all that to be abusive and to be doing this and kidnap? No, that's crazy. Let me wrap this up. I can cut this apart. And throughout this whole thing, nobody calls the cops, nobody tells the cops. It's just allowed to keep going on, and everyone's just like standing by, just accepting the life that is being lived. And as it goes on, the main premise of this whole documentary is to highlight the fact that things are not always what they seem. You do not see everything. You cannot see everything because people are consistently going out their way to make sure you don't see anything. But yeah, that's the Diddy doc. We out. Make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe. This was a long, like 2.5 hours. We out.